Welcome back to Between the Before and After, a podcast about the stories that shape us. I'm your host, Coach John McLernan, and each episode I bring you an inspiring guest with a moving story that shines a light on the power of the human spirit. I'm excited to share this story with you, so let's dive in. All right, welcome back to another episode of Between the Before and After. I am always excited when I get a fellow Canadian on the podcast. So today we're welcoming Jas from Toronto. How you doing, man?
I'm amazing, my man, and I like always speaking to fellow Canadians. I like to speak to everybody in the world, but when it's a fellow Canadian, that's really, really awesome. Just to kind of hear a little bit of your backstory was kind of cool for the 7-8 seconds that we were talking off air. But I'm pumped, man. I'm always honored when somebody has me on their podcast. Because I remember just growing up that I didn't think anybody wanted to hear anything from me. And so especially the teachers, they told me that a lot. But when somebody wants me on their podcast, I'm always trying to make sure I can bring as much value as possible. And I'm really hoping that I inspire at least one guy or gal out of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that are gonna be listening to this and watching this. Can I say something that even if that they've heard it before, maybe because it's a Tuesday afternoon while they're taking their dog for a walk and they're listening to this podcast, it clicks to them. And so thank you for having me on, John. I'm really honored.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we dive into your story here, where are you at presently? What are you doing? Because we're going to explore your story in terms of how you got to what you're doing presently. So where are you at right now?
Like, where am I at in terms of business and life, you mean?
Yeah,
man. Look, I got two little boys, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and so I always call that that's really the most important stuff to me. Like, that's pedestal stuff. But I'm in my business life, hence why most people have me on their podcast, because God knows I shouldn't be talking about parenting, that's for sure. But when it comes to my current business situation, I have two businesses that I own and operate, both with two different business partners. One is it's called REC Canada, which stands for Real Estate Center. That's a real estate firm, a traditional real estate firm in the sense of where we help home buyers and home sellers. But I think we're different in the sense that we focus a lot of our efforts helping people create wealth in real estate, specifically in the greater Toronto area. So for your out of province, out of country listeners, that's a 50 miles / 75 kilometer radius. We have 60 odd realtors on our team. I have a business partner. We have a leadership team in our organization. I've been doing that for about 18 years. We just, at the time of this recording, we're at the start of 2023. For 2022, I'm very, very blessed, and really want to give all the kudos and flowers to the team of 60 and the leadership team. We placed number 2 in the country out of 22,000 for the franchise that we're under, which is called Royal LePage Canada. So, I think that's huge. It's not to impress people. It's just to give people an idea kind of why maybe John wanted me on the podcast. Number 2, and the second organization is probably more, it came from and started really through a passion project, which was helping people create content, because I do personally anywhere from 12 to 15 pieces of content on all the social platforms a day. And so people start to ask, like, holy crap, man, like, what kind of crack and steroids are you on that you're able to do so much? I had my still VP in my real estate organization reach out. She has a degree and an MBA in marketing / branding / communications. So she really had the brains when it came to like personal branding and all that. But she also had a passion for it. She started kind of her journey and putting out videos. And she also, I think, and on a side note, I think you should have her on your podcast, because she has a really cool story as well, jumping from a bunch of industries. But she also had this hole in her life where she wanted more. Just like anyone else. And she said, look, I would love to start a company. Her and I kept on getting kind of slapped in the face by agents in our city, in our office. Like, how do you do all this content? We kept on getting asked, the entrepreneurs in us, and said, let's start a company. That company now in the last 18 months has morphed into more of a sales solution company for salespeople. So it's not just media. There's education components through immersion programs, through online courses, through video coaching. Still, we can take someone from never doing a podcast, starting it, producing it, editing it, all that for them. So we still have the media arm, and that company is called From the Ground Up, which again still is my passion. I really, being sales my whole life, which I'm sure we're gonna kind of venture into in our conversation. I owe so much to the real estate industry, but I owe even more to the sales industry, because it allowed a boy at the age of 6, 7, who really didn't know what the heck he wanted, what he was good at and all that. Obviously at 6 or 7, it's hard to tell, but even, at 17, 18, 19, no real formal education from school, can't really spell half the words I say. It gave me a shot. It gave me an opportunity, and that's the sales industry. And now I want to help salespeople, and that's what that company From the Ground Up really does.
Yeah, that's awesome. And well, you mentioned like 6, 7 years old, and you're the son of immigrants who came to Toronto. And 6, 7 years old, what did you picture you were going to do with your life? Did you have any ideas?
Well, not really at 6 or 7. What I did do at 6 or 7 that I think was telling was I was literally in all the classes, the first kid who put up his hand to help with the book sale, to help with the bake sale. Looking back, I could tell why, because I just wanted to get out of class. I still till this day, you can't sit me down. I'm actually surprised how often I can do a podcast of my own and other people's and sit in a seat. Well, you'll see me fidget around. But even at that young age, I wanted to meet people and talk to people, and I wasn't afraid of some, an adult even coming to the book sale. I was okay asking the question, how can I help? Or do you like this book? Or, you should look at this book, whatever it was. Also going door to door, not by myself, at that age, selling Christmas ornaments. Again, very telling. I wasn't concerned or worried or I didn't have that insecurity at that time. Of meeting new people and strangers, right? And so to answer your question, John, I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do, but I definitely knew what I liked to do, and that was meeting people.
Okay, so you started to see that you had a little bit of a knack for business as well, and understanding a bit more about that, or
I think I had a knack for making people smile, even at that age, till this day, I'm a very positive guy by nature on a regular basis. From what people tell me, the close people around me and people who just meet me, I'm always smiling. But I had that since I was a kid. I would knock on the doors and smile. And I also, maybe not at 6 or 7, it probably happened at 10, 11, 12 when I started doing door-to-door newspaper. The first time I ever got paid was 12 years old for selling newspapers, right? And that's when I caught on to, if you're just nice to people, you have a better chance of them buying something from you.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than knocking on the door and just say, "Hi, I'm here to sell you a newspaper," or "Would you like to buy a paper?" If I said, "Hey, John, how you doing today? How's your day today?" And, "Oh my God, I love the color of that car. What kind of sports car is that?" Or, "My God, you have a basketball net." Or back then it was really a hockey net. You had a hockey net. You have a hockey net. Do you have other kids my age? You know what I mean? Just talking about that. Oh my, the landscaping. At 12, I was picking up on these things and bringing them up as early as possible when somebody opened the door, to build rapport, because I knew, and I didn't even know the word was rapport. I knew though that there was something to, when you can have some type of connection as early as possible, the probability of this person saying yes to whatever I'm asking for, and it was either would you like the subscription to the Toronto Star or the Toronto Sun, or it was, it's time to pay for your subscription and I'm hoping for the tip. You know what I mean? But back then, we're talking about 1990, probably 92 or something like that, 91. I mean, a couple of dollars back in those days. We're in a long way. And in fact, I spent majority of it, as you can tell, on fries and gravy.
I had a paper route growing up, and I remember getting a $10 tip, and I just thought my year was made. I think I bought a 6-pack of donuts and a 2-liter root beer or something like that.
Hey, are you a root beer guy, Joe?
I am, man. Root beer and
Okay,
ginger
hey,
ale.
there's not a lot of us out there, man. That means I knew there's some type of chemistry. By far, hands down, my favorite pop is root beer, A&W to be exact.
Yeah.
But I think at 12, and like without any exaggeration, I actually thought I was gonna sell newspapers my whole life. Like I thought that
Okay.
was it. I thought that was the
Yeah.
gig. Like I got paid for something that I would do for free anyways. This is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Hit the jackpot. Obviously, now you go into high school and it's like, okay, now the doors open up. You see
Yeah.
that
Your
there's a
mind is
lot more.
expanded.
Your mind's expanded. But I jumped on an opportunity exactly in grade 12, so 17 years old. I jumped onto an opportunity which was a co-op class where they send you to go work somewhere, and one of the options was working at a retail store in the mall.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what drew me to going to that retail store and checking off that box that that's where I want to go. But I can
Yeah.
tell you it was probably the best decision I ever made. Like
Yeah.
even looking back to, whatever it's been now, 23, 24 years ago, that was by far the best decision I made because that was my first endeavor into like the retail, really working with customers coming into the store. So it was a
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
changer, right? I was always going outbound and understanding that, okay, like it doesn't matter what happened earlier in the day at school. If I'm not nice to these people who walk in, not only are they not going to buy, I'm probably going to get fired, And so
Right.
it was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
my first quasi semi like formal job, even though I was still in high school. But
Yeah.
I did really well there. It was probably the highest grade I ever got, other than gym.
Yeah.
And they took me on full time in the summer, gave me a
Yeah.
part-time job in school that lasted for almost 2.5 years.
What
And
was the
so,
store?
Sporting Life, like
Okay.
it's at that time it was a very small. I don't want to call it a small mom and pop because it was a higher end lifestyle store. So in
Okay. Yeah.
this call it department store, lifestyle store, they sold skis, snowboards, tennis rackets, polo tops,
Yeah.
and running shoes for marathons and sprinters. I
Right.
personally
Right.
worked my 2.5 years in the footwear department. So till this day,
Okay.
I can tell you just by looking at your feet, telling you to walk, bend your knees, this, that, I can tell you exactly what shoes you should be wearing, because
Right. Yeah.
they really made sure that you understood the product, which
Yeah.
I didn't know it was important at that time, but I still
Yeah.
carry that on to like in my sales career now. Specifically, when I went into car sales, probably over 5-7 years later, I skipped over a big stint that I had in sales and service with the banking industry, the Red Bank here, CIBC, which was for 2.5 years. Taught me all
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
phone skills because I worked in the telephone department, like online. Sorry, the telephone banking department. So if you want to pay your bills and all that kind of stuff. So I really understood. I really got a good handle on telephone skills. But the product knowledge about shoes really played out well for me when I went into car sales because I didn't know anything about cars. Like I had nothing.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I wasn't the kid who had the Lamborghini Countach poster in my wall. You know what I mean?
What?
I didn't. I
Man,
just wasn't. I had
book fairs.
Mario. Well,
That's like the
I
number
know.
one.
Good point. But you know where I went? Mario Lemieux.
Okay.
You get what
Fair
I'm saying?
enough.
Like, so,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
my books, all Mario Lemieux, hockey, soccer, football wasn't, American football wasn't that big like here in
Yeah.
Canada
Yeah.
anyways. Hence why I had a massive affinity still to this day, not a big affinity, but I still understand the CFL very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Did you
had,
play hockey growing up as well?
yeah, like a street hockey. I'm really a soccer, like, if I had to pick a sport that I was probably really good at, it would be soccer.
Yeah.
I probably have a passion of watching American football the most.
Yeah.
I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan. The day of
All
this
right.
recording right now tonight is a big game for us. And so, but when I went into car sales, I had to tap into like going back into what I learned in selling shoes. Okay, you need to know the
Mm-hmm.
product, because like people are going to be coming in and they're buying a car. This is no longer $150, $200
Pair of
pair of
shoes. Yeah,
shoes.
yeah,
Now we're talking 27, 25,000 upwards to $100,000. I was working with Acura,
yeah.
kind of Honda's luxury car, and so you needed to know what you were talking about. And really quickly, I think within the first, I'm going to say 4 to 5 months, I was like, I got this. I got this.
Right.
I got the customer service angle down, no problem. But I needed to know the product. And so I used to
Mm-hmm.
drive the cars a lot. I would test them on parking lots. I would road test before the customer. Like I just really, really figured out the best way for me to sell this car and sell those cars. And after about 2.5 years, I felt like I didn't have a challenge there. The
Mm-hmm.
people were amazing. I still speak to them till this day. And I started to get the itch. And for me, the itch always happens around 2.5 years, where it's like, I want a new challenge. And for me, the new
Yeah.
challenge was, what's the biggest purchase that the average person's going to make? It's going to be real estate. That's what I want. Let's go.
Yeah.
At 23 years old, got my license, got into real estate. Didn't know my head from your what. And I found one of the top guys that was doing it in our city. Begged him to clean his toilets and bring him coffee, do all the work that he didn't want to do, if he just promised to teach me. I said,
Yeah.
all the stuff you didn't want to do, I will, that you don't want to do in your business, like whatever it is, man, like just throw, like I'll
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
the dog. I will be the dog. You tell me where to go. You tell me to jump. I'll ask how high and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I did that for 2 years. Really got an understanding of the business, and within about year 5, made partner in his firm that he founded. And we were on our merry way, and he passed away, though, very, very tragically, about 5 years ago. Kind of turned my life and definitely my business upside down. But then I found content creation as my scapegoat, maybe, if that's, for a lack of a better word, where
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, I can communicate with people, but I wasn't comfortable on camera. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I heard a word called podcasting, and I was like, this is cool. You don't need a camera. Not that anybody's ever told me I have the most sexy voice in the world, but nobody's ever told me that I have the
That
worst
doesn't
voice
sound
in the
like, dragging gravel across the chalkboard. So, that's
exactly.
a plus. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm somewhere in between there.
Yeah.
And it's free. There's no cost to it. My current business partner in the media company, the one that I mentioned, had all the schooling behind it. She's like, this is a no-brainer. You got to do this. We jumped on, and we now have, I don't know, a little over 200 podcasts recorded. We help other people do
Nice.
the same. But what I was able to do with it was take little micro clips. And I had
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity to do a podcast, which I'm sure some of your viewers and listeners will know. A guy named Gary Vee.
Yep.
Went to his office in New York, did a podcast with him, and he gave me his blueprint and gave my partner and I the blueprint on how to get more content out of a 30-40 minute conversation. And I got obsessed.
Yeah.
It kept me up at night for 2 to 3 years. I did exactly what he said to do. Literally, hire these people, bring these people on board. Here's how to do. And I did exactly what he said. And my life has been changed ever since.
Yeah. So I want to get to know a little bit more about Jas, the person behind the professional as well, So let's rewind the clock a little bit here, because, your parents, you said you're immigrants. Where were your parents from?
My parents are from the province of Punjab in India, which is the most northern province in India.
Right. And does it border Pakistan?
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, it borders
Yeah,
Pakistan.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so they come over to Canada. So Canada is actually one of the common places. I know out here in the West Coast, I was born in Vancouver, and Surrey has quite a large region, quite a large population of Punjab folks as well, and a very rich agricultural region. So they come over here and do a ton of farming. We can credit them for a lot of the amazing blueberries we get out on the West Coast.
Especially in Abbotsford. So I have a lot of friends in Abbotsford that have blueberry farms. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Back home, that's exactly what we do. We're farmers, man. If you own land, that's what you do. You own land, you grow vegetables, fruits, and then you sell it to the market. That's exactly. We still own farm back home till this day.
Right. So what made your parents decide to come to Canada?
Yeah, look, I think it's, the story is the same for a lot of people, even till this day, that are in places like India, and where people are looking for more opportunity, right? My parents made the move to Canada. In fact, my father didn't come straight to Toronto. He came, they settled in Edmonton, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I still have my father's cousin, who's also his best man. We call him he's like an uncle to us.
Mm-hmm.
He's still there. They're still there in Sherwood Park area.
Yep.
And
Just
my
up the road from
father,
Red Deer, where I live.
yeah, that's funny. My business partner's from Red Deer, actually. The guy with the real estate company that I have. So my father worked as a taxi driver in
Yep.
Edmonton, and but for some reason the licensing process was taking too long. Like, he had his license, driver's license, but
Mm-hmm,
he
mm-hmm.
couldn't own a plate, like a license plate. He
Right.
could drive as a taxi driver, and so he just didn't feel like there was a big enough opportunity after about, I think it was about maybe 6 to 7 months,
Yep.
and so he made the move over to Toronto. He had a friend here that was working in a fish market. And so my
Okay.
father came. My father came here. It was the booming job that he was looking for. All joking aside,
Yeah. Yeah.
he lost that job within like 2 months. The market
Okay.
shut down. The market
Right.
shut
Right.
down. But then he went to getting the license for driving taxi here. This time he
Now.
wasn't in a rush.
Right. Right.
He
Now. At
Go ahead.
this time, was he married or was he single at this
Yeah,
point?
I apologize. Yeah, so he was married, and I have two older brothers. And
Okay.
so in 1972, so this was probably 1971. Sorry, late. No, this would have been early 1972 when my brother was born. So my brother would have been born, and then that's when my father left India to kind of settle here, to get
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
over here. And so that's kind of the process. Like, get
Yeah.
yourself here, and then now you're going to start to bring over the family. And so my eldest brother, and my mother were probably in India for probably about a year while my father was getting everything prepared here in Canada.
And that's quite a sacrifice to make. I mean, like I spent some time serving in the military, so I know a little bit about being away from family and whatnot. But like a year away from family, because I imagine Indian culture, like family is extremely important. So
It
so having
a
the
hundred
separation
percent, man.
kind of been
A
easy.
100%. It definitely takes a village, right? And so they, but he knew to answer your, the earlier part of your question, why Canada? Because it was probably one of the easier places to get to, like
Yeah.
especially in the early '70s, immigration, like, it was like, come to Canada, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We got
And
lots of
there's
space,
jobs.
man.
We got a lot of space here, right? And again, just because of the opportunity,
Yeah.
my father knew that. I guess he made the decision. I'm not sure how much he knew exactly, or how much he believed in it, but he made the decision that he wanted to call Canada home for his only son at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
4.5 years later, my middle brother was born, and then I'm about 9.5 to 10 years apart from my eldest brother. But this is
Okay.
where my parents decided that they wanted to settle. And I'm glad. Look, like, no shots
Oh, look.
against any other. No other shots against any other place in the country, but Toronto, like, I love it, man. Like, I was just away for 7 days, but Dorothy said it the best in Wizard of Oz. There is no place like home.
Yeah, yeah, and that laid the foundation. I mean, because it's so interesting when we think about our story. Like this was the foundation being laid for you to have the story that you do today. And I think it's important to touch on these things because sometimes we lose sight of that. Like, the expression, "We're standing on the shoulders of giants," like your dad making that sacrifice. And I mean, I get it. I look at like the size of India and the population that it has, and the population density, and the sheer competition for resources. Then you go to Canada, where it's full of empty space. It's like, man,
Yeah.
there is probably as many people living in Greater Delhi than there is in Canada. Maybe not quite, but
Oh, pretty much, man. Well, think about it. There's what, 1.11, well, there's 1.2 billion people in all of India, right? And what do we
yeah,
have
yeah,
here in Canada? About 33 million.
38.
Uh,
Yeah.
30, yeah, right. But yeah, when you're talking about sacrifice, like, my father's the eldest of four.
Mm-hmm.
And he made sure that his younger brothers and sisters got out of the country before he did.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
And so, which is rare, right? Like, usually it works the other way. The eldest goes first, and then you kind of work your way down from there, right? But my father was quite adamant that his two younger sisters and his youngest brother got out first, and then if the cards were in his favor, he would then be kind of the last. So, I mean, there could have been a good. At the end of the day, I clock it all up to the fact that my dad and mom did their thing 9 months before I was born.
Yeah.
My dad could have went for another shot of whiskey, and I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and so there's obviously some luck into all of it, but
Yeah.
the fact, like, that's my father. Like, the fact that he drove taxi the way that he did, for like here in city of Toronto, when you work at the airport, you work for 24 hours. Like, it's a full 24
Yeah.
hour day work day, and then you're off the next day, right? But also back in the early 80s, when he kind of got really settled in at the airport, they're driving taxi. I mean, there wasn't as many people that look like us here. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
different, right? It
Yeah.
was
Yeah. He
different.
had to deal
And
with
so
a potential,
a lot, man. Yeah, like a lot of it. And for him to still stick it through, people ask me all the time, like, who was your hero growing up? Like, it's my father, like,
yeah. Yeah.
hands down. Mom is always mom to you, right? Like,
Yeah. Of
mom is
course.
the
Of
one
course.
that probably rubbed your feet when you were a kid, and all. Like, mom is
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But my dad's my hero, like, hands down, easy. Like, there's not even, I don't even have to think about it.
Right. Just because of the sheer sacrifice made to pave the way for you to be able to do what it is that you're doing today. Does your mom make like a favorite dish? What of your mom's cooking is like the best thing?
Interesting. That's a great question, brother. It's aloo gobi, actually,
Okay.
which is cauliflower and potatoes,
Yeah.
but with some Indian spices mixed in, specifically, I would say, like, cumin, and I actually don't know the English version of it. Tamarind, is it called, or what's the word?
Tamarind, I think. Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the main one. That's the main one that's used. I know the Punjabi words for it.
Yeah.
But I would say that's probably my mom growing up. She would cook meat. She never ate meat, but she would
Mhm.
cook meat. But probably about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, yeah, probably when I was about 15 or ish, she stopped cooking meat. So, I mean, I go to mom's till this day for the aloo gobi, and then there's a breakfast item that I would probably only want to eat at my mom's, which is it's a regular roti or a naan that you would
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
of, but this one's stuffed. Doesn't
Okay.
make sense
Amazing.
that you eat it for breakfast because it's so heavy. You cannot do this on a weekday. I laugh with my
Right.
team
Right.
all the time. It's not something that you would ever eat on a weekday because you would fall asleep right away. It's a perfect Sunday brunch item because then you can knock out for an hour and take a nap with a
Yeah.
cup of
Yeah.
tea. But it's stuffed with potatoes.
Yeah.
It's stuffed, so it's very heavy. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I would probably say that's 1A of my mom's favorite kind of cooking, at least for her youngest son.
That's amazing.
Her
I mean,
favorite son, and by the way.
of course, of course. And I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of Indian food. One of my top dishes is Rogan Josh, which I think translates into like
Woo!
red heat.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that that's what it translates into, but and is it with lamb?
it is. Yeah, lamb
Yeah,
Rogan Josh. It's amazing. Because a lot of people pick butter chicken because it's mild, it's creamy, it's sweet. Like, it's delicious, right? But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
It's sweet.
ubiquitous. But
Yeah,
no, something like a good Rogan Josh is like. So my dad was an exterminator. Just as a bit of backstory, growing up in Lower Mainland, and of course,
yeah,
and so he used to service a restaurant there called the Himalaya Restaurant, which
yeah,
was
yeah.
East Indian cuisine. And so he'd go there at night, and they'd give him like these samosas and all this food, and he'd bring home all this Indian food, and it was just, I was like in heaven. I was like, this
Wow.
is the greatest thing ever. So
Like, if you ever make it out to Toronto, John, and you don't look me up, brother, I'm gonna take it up as an insult. Because I usually say to people, whatever your vice is, water, tea, coffee, vodka, tequila, or beer. But I know what your vice is, and so
it's
I'm gonna take
Indian
you
food,
to.
man.
Oh yeah, man, I'm gonna take you to some, like, hole in the walls, but those are the best places.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, where I would eat. So I just got back from, as I mentioned, from Mexico, and it's always a conversation with people, like, "What's your first meal back?" For me, it's Indian food. Like I
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
the tacos and the pizza. Don't get me wrong, in Mexico, and they were fantastic. But I miss, where I usually go is the goat meat route. So I like
Yeah,
lamb.
yeah.
I like
Yeah.
lamb. But there's
It's
something
an
for
acquired
me.
taste, though, I feel like it.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people who don't even want to go there, but for me, man, I could do a massive plate of goat meat to myself. It could be with
Yeah.
rice, but I usually do it with naan and yogurt.
That's awesome. And then
Yeah.
there's another part of your story too. So along the way, you mentioned you got two sons. So I imagine there's someone else that's contributed to you having two sons.
Oh, well, obviously, yes, yes, yes. My wife, her and I have been together for coming up to a little over 20 years now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Um,
no small feat in today's world where a lot of relationships get thrown away, you know? Um,
yeah, look, I think it's tough too, right? When you have someone like myself, that I don't really have a job. Like I don't work
yeah,
per
yeah, yeah.
se, and I don't say that to sound cocky or to like rub it in people's face or
Sure,
anything of
sure,
that
yeah.
sort. I love what I get to do every single day. It's very challenging at times because a I have clients. So when you're in client service, that's always a
Mm,
problem.
yep,
And there's always fires you need to put out. But they can call at any time, right? And if you're someone who wants more, well, I mean, there's a few times that you might not have to answer, but if you stop answering, then most people are just going to stop calling you, and then you're going to have a
absolutely,
problem
yeah.
keeping the lights on, right? So that's always tough. But for her to kind of stick it through with someone like me who also is wanting to grow and start more businesses, that's a tough feat for anybody.
Absolutely. How did you meet her?
Actually, really quick, funny story there. There was a probably about a 3 to 4 month period that I worked at a banquet hall as
Okay.
a bus boy. It was probably actually longer than 4 months. What am I saying? It was 2 summers, and then I did so it was probably a collective of like 6 months or so.
Yeah, yeah.
And she had come to a party there
Okay.
and asked me for a table. She says till this day that I never brought her to the table, but I kind of remember bringing it to her. And she that's the first time we met. The small world part of it is that she happened to be 2 years later become sorry my first cousin's best friend. And so we were at
Okay.
a religious ceremony. Obviously, like my family was there. My cousin, first cousin, invited her, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's the guy that I met a couple of years ago." And my first son's name is Millen,
Okay.
and the place of that the banquet hall's name is called Millen. That's where we met.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was kind of the full story of how that all kind of came together.
So who pursued who?
I'm gonna have to say she did me. That's
Okay.
at that time. At that time for sure. Um, I'm just trying to. I want to make sure that I'm not over exaggerating. Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
It was
She'll be
definitely.
listening to this later.
Yeah, 100%. And so I would say it would be her pursuing me.
Yeah, she saw something. So then what was it about her that you're like, yeah, this is the one?
Look, I think a couple of things. I think the fact that we were really young, 20-ish.
Yeah.
She was someone that was okay with who I was, and the fact that I didn't have kind of the formal education. I'm a very free-spirited person. I'm gonna try a lot of different things that might not make a lot of people happy. And that really attracted me at that time for sure.
Mm-mm. That's amazing. So, and you're building quite a legacy to hopefully inspire your sons as well. Are you teaching at this age? Are you teaching them any of the ins and outs of business and entrepreneurship yet?
Yeah, no, look, like my 9-year-old has already done a lemonade stand, a hot chocolate stand. He's already interested in selling kind of not baseball cards, Pokemon cards.
Yeah, yeah,
And my 7-year-old, I mean, he kind of follows what the 9-year-old does. I truly like. To me, it doesn't matter what the heck these guys do, as long
yeah.
as they do something that they're passionate about. But I definitely see a possible entrepreneur in my 9-year old, because he's always asking the question. So what I do teach them a lot is more mindset stuff,
Mm.
especially the way that I kind of work. I don't get to spend a lot of time during the week. I get kind of my weekend time, because by the time I get home, they're already asleep. And
Yeah.
sometimes I leave the house really early in the morning. And it's kind of a phase of where I'm at in my life right now, and I'm okay with that. when people ask me how do I balance stuff, I suck at it. I don't balance anything.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
that guy. It's just the truth, right?
yeah.
And so I try my best. I try not to miss any of their sports games and stuff like that. I also haven't missed like birthdays or anything of that sort. But I try to teach them more mindset stuff, right? Like the fact that you got to be kind, you got to be nice, you can't give up, like all that stuff. I just hope they take that with them. That's what I'm really trying to inspire them with. They're 9 and 7, and what the heck is going to
Yeah,
happen
yeah.
in 5 years, 8 years? Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? But that's my hope. That's my hope for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jas, I mean, there's so much more of your story to be explored. We've only scratched the surface, but I appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate you taking the time to share a little bit more of the personal side as well, because I think that's the part that really genuinely connects with people. I mean, look, it's amazing to see the success you've had professionally and get a little glimpse into what's brought that into fruition. But it's also really cool to get to meet the other side of Jas as well. So I appreciate.
Yeah, man.
that.
Look, I appreciate it, man. Nobody really goes there that, like, with me, generally speaking. So you had me, and your viewers and listeners definitely got like one of the most raw versions of me, because there's a lot of stuff that I generally don't talk about. Not for any reason other than like I just don't get asked it often, and that's not kind of what people are interested. So I give you kudos, Sean, for kind of taking that route today.
Absolutely, man. Well, for people listening to today, if they were to take one nugget of wisdom away from it, what would you like them to take away?
It's always a loaded question, right? Because there's so many things going through my mind.
You got a lot to share.
Yeah, I do. I have a success table of elements that myself and my team put together.
Yeah, I saw that. I love that. I'm a former chemist, so I was like, that is amazing, by the way.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
I used to memorize a periodic table of elements, so I was like, yeah, I recognize that right away.
So it's funny that you mentioned the periodic table of elements, because I didn't really know many of them. And I sucked at any of the science classes. And so I said, it's time to make a success table of elements. So my team and I sat together and we put some stuff together. And I think the one that I very rarely actually even speak about, and for everybody who's watching or listening, it's 13 elements that will help you succeed in business and in life. From my take, things that have helped me. And the one that I probably don't talk about a lot is the acronym GIGO, GIGO. And what that stands for is garbage in, garbage out. If you allow negativity constantly into the 6 inches between the ears, there's a very high probability that that's what's going to come out, garbage. And I'm not here to knock the media, traditional or social media, but it's you as the viewer or listener of that media that is allowing that in. People always knock social media like, oh my God, it's so bad in terms of what's being put out on these platforms. Yeah, but the algorithms work in a way that they give you more of what you like or what you're watching. Stop watching that stuff and you won't get it. Or I don't like what's being put out on traditional media, like the news on TV. Change the channel. Watch something else. They all have an agenda. The social media platforms have an agenda. The traditional media outlets have an agenda. But I think it's your job to decipher what is positive and what's negative. And I'm here to tell you that if you allow more positivity in between the 6 inches between your ears, there's a very high probability that a lot of good will come out as well. Find podcasts like John's. Find more positive, uplifting videos. Look for people that are inspiring, because if you hang around 5 inspiring, positive people, there's a very good chance that you'll be number 6.
That's awesome. Well, Jas, again, thank you so much for your time today, and look forward to when we get to chat next.
I appreciate it. Well, I look forward to talking to you in person over some lamb Rogan Gosh and some go curry, buddy.
Sounds amazing.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Between the Before and After. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review, because that helps this podcast to reach and inspire more people. I love exploring the stories that take place between the before and after, the powerful experiences that shape who we become, and I love human potential. I love the possibilities that lie within us. So whatever you may be up against,